So, Zach, what would you say? Days, weeks, months of begging? I mean, just begging. We finally decided to let Andre be on the podcast.
Yeah, he's only done 7,392 of them in the last month.
Hey, man, I'm trying to get ready for the season. I just got done doing one with Percy Gardner.
I was going to make that a surprise. I was going to have TJ guess what random Cleveland reliever.
That should be your new shirts that you look for.
There is someone who has a Percy jersey who shows up to a lot of games. Mm-hmm. Is he still... I mean, that was one of the more genuine guys I've ever seen in that clubhouse. Is he still
that guy?
Dude?
Yeah, still that guy. I guess I would say still trying to figure out exactly where he wants to go with the rest of his life, kind of like the rest of us. He told a great story about Bieber today, just how, when Bieber was throwing 90, 91 before, and how, they would brag about how hard he threw. And he said, he understood once he got through his career that being accurate was better than throwing, with velocity. He said, I would always brag that I could throw 99. He goes, Bieber would always brag about not walking anybody. And his claim to fame was he was at the minor league game that Shane Bieber had gone he got 100 batters without walking a guy or something. He was at the game that he walked the guy, the 101st.
Is that when you want to claim, or I want to distance myself?
Right. I was like, that's your memory of being with. Okay. I mean, we all got them. I got weird ones too.
We were all at Len Barker's perfect game, but Percy Garner was at Shane Bieber's minor league walk.
When we knew he was a human being, he could walk someone. I don't know. I guess because I watched some minor league baseball before I started doing this job. And I have a curious, and I know we watch a lot of baseball, but at some point in my life, I do want to go back and watch more Double-A baseball, and really get it, and really watch and be like, do I really see a future pro, or am I just an idiot like everybody else?
I've always thought, and maybe I need to do a story on this. Spend a month as a scout. Pretend I'm a scout, go to the ballpark, sit there with my radar gun, with my notes, and pretend I'm a scout, evaluate every player, and come back and keep doing that for a few weeks, and then wait a few years and see, did I get anything right?
I think it's a great idea. Why are you laughing, Teach?
Because we could finally, I don't know, put something on it here where Zach is someone that will remember all of the things that he's gotten right, and every time he beats me in a fantasy draft before the year starts, he rubs it in my face. Just one time I want him to get out there and to be exposed, and
like everyone else, though, right? It's like mock draft season right now. You get from radio. You know how idiotic mock drafts are. There was I remember the first time I had a boss, and he'll remain nameless because I can't say many nice things about him. But he was like, you should do a mock draft and put it on our website. And I was like, we work at a radio station. No one comes to our website to read sports, number one. Number two, mock drafts are the most idiotic thing I've ever. And I know, I can feel the text messages and tweets. They're dumb. It's who cares? You're just, the running back from Georgia, he'll fit good with Carolina. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what's going to happen in the draft. I hate him. That's all. And he wouldn't be, but you know what though, Tej? I would like it, and we need to find a company that would send you out to do the same thing. We should get 4 people and just send them out to watch Double-A baseball for 2 months and come back to the story 2 years later.
I think I'd just throw out all the stats and I'd just go old school I got a gut feeling about this guy. This guy, he's got a good face. He's got a real good face. He's got great body. That's all I care about when it comes to scouting these guys.
And then you scout who they date, and that tells you a little bit too. I've had scouts tell me stuff, man.
That's true.
Yes.
The biggest thing, this organization especially, they want to know your character more than anything else, your makeup. The big thing you always hear them say, this, Andre, it's when you come face to face with adversity, how will you handle that?
Yes.
And your background and your history and those around you paint that picture.
I think it's true. Go ahead, Teach.
Well, I was going to say, we've talked about it here recently. That's why I was and I will continue to be impressed by every young player that goes through when they get to the big league level. We had talked about Stephen Kwan. When he got here, he was on fire. You couldn't get him out. And then he went through a stretch where things were bad. And we can learn everything we can about a guy that just comes up and is great, and that's fine. What happens when you fail? Because especially this sport, more than any other, is about how you deal with that. And like, you would love to have a guy just come up and hit 350 for his entire career and he never has any issues, but that's not realistic. I feel like you learn so much about the player by watching the struggles and then seeing how they come out of it.
It's a lot like life. And that's why baseball to me is the closest thing to life. You're going to have tough moments. You're going to struggle. Who are you shows up in those moments. And that's why even with this Guardians team this year, I think Quan answered him pretty well. I think, I think with all the hype and just how when he had that one bad month, it's funny, we all can say, oh, he had this bad month. And he really, when you go back, he was pretty consistent other than that 1 month. And there will be another month or maybe 2 months this year. I mean, we've watched Jose go through it. There's still some questions marks about this, but I think the way they go about doing this makes sense. They do find out like who you are, what you are. I don't think you can put a finger upon it. I mean, you can't let a guy like on E6, that hasn't that's asking to borrow $5. You can't go off of what he tells you when it comes to the draft, like some organizations like to do. But there is something about finding out who these guys are and what these people are about. I think even I did a thing with Josh Naylor that you'll see during one of our rain delays this year on Guardians Baseball that Zach proudly brought up. Zach, I just need you to tweet about it when it happens. All right. So
what network? What channel?
See, I thought you were going to the. Hey, there's going to be Guardians games on, and I've been told I should still be doing them. So, knock on wood. Hopefully, we don't see how I react when things go worse for me this year. But I was talking to. We did this thing with Naylor, and I've got a lot of guys talking about Naylor just being the best teammate ever. Now, obviously, that's a hyperbole we can run with, and everybody can say that. But why do you not say that about a teammate, right? But they were all like explaining why he was the best teammate. Like Quan and all these guys are saying, when you get called up, Brennan told the story. He's like, you get called up, you talk to Chris, you talk to Tito, you talk to Tony in the back. And then like last year, it was like Naylor kind of took you in. Like this is what time you need to be this is what you need to dress. This is what you need to wear. If you need this, if you want to eat, like he had like a litany of things he did with those guys. And that just became his thing. And Bo, his brother, has constantly told me like he is the best big brother ever. And all this is easy. Am I back? I think my phone rang, but I'm back now.
You're good.
So in talking to Naylor about this and why he seems to be the best teammate ever is this like he makes a big deal about that. And we saw that in the first playoff game he played as a Cleveland Indian when he got pulled out of the game after having 2 huge hits off the wall of Garrett Cole. And I can't even think of the right hand either. Who'd they bring in for him?
Luplo.
Yes, Jordan Luplo. And he's at the top step going ape, what. In that moment, we all learned who Josh is in tough moments. And I think that's kind of why the Guardians are the Guardians. Josh, I can't put my finger on who he is once the season starts here in a little bit because he's different. But his teammates freaking love him. And I guess that's all that matters.
Okay, so we know how Josh handles adversity. How do you think he would handle someone dealing with adversity that happened to him? Because someone on this podcast might have spilled some coffee near his belongings a few days ago.
Snap!
He was not around, so I couldn't say anything. But I think we're okay. But it had the potential to be pretty bad. His bag of stuff that he had packed was very close.
$5 worth of stuff, right? The thing is about him, though, man. And he is the conundrum of. I will admit this. I think we go into seasons and we all have things that we're working on that are important to us. I have to do a better job of getting the real Josh Naylor out on air, and I don't know if he wants me to. During off season, he is awesome. I think I don't want to say battling. I don't want to make it. Teach, it's a struggle for me right now because I have these great conversations with him off the air. He loves my kids. He ran up to my kids at batting practice the other morning. He gives them hugs like they're his long lost little kids. But man, the red light comes on and he wants Nathan, nothing Nathan at all for people to see who he is. And it's killing me it's not killing me. I just feel like in my job, I want to do a better job of showing who he is, and I'm not.
But Andre, isn't that? I think for some of these guys, that's what makes them great, because he is who he is off the field, and when the cameras aren't around, all that. Like that's one thing, but it's almost like you. I mean, like you're the superhero. You know, you're putting on your cape and you're going to work, and it's.
True.
You just enter this different mentality. And this might sound weird. I mean, you'll be able to read this probably by the time you listen to this podcast, but I've been working forever on this piece about Terry Francona. And it's different, but it's similar in that, and we've talked about this plenty of times, he will love every day to tell stories about how stupid he was doing this, or making fun of himself every way possible to throw you off his scent.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you ask him about his 3 American League Manager of the Year trophies, if you ask him about how he reinvented bullpen usage, if you asked him how he convinced a room full of 23-year-olds last year to believe that their inexperience didn't matter,
right?
He wants nothing to do with it.
Nothing. And it's hard to get real. It's hard to get real. Like, it happened again today. And did you sense it or notice it? Probably not, because you're in Zack Meisel hell already within yourself. And Zach's a really good. Zach is one of the better reporters around. But I do it too. But what did he make the big deal when we went into his office? I'm gonna take people behind the room, but when he went into his office to talk to us after he talked to the team today, Zach, a lot of chuckles, a lot of typical Tito. But I guarantee you, Tito went in there and said something serious as crap. And kind of put down, hey, they kicked our ass last year in Seattle. This is, like all the stuff he'll never admit out loud. Now, I don't know this verbatim. I wasn't in the meeting. I was standing next to you. But I've heard enough people talk that are in those about how he does things. And in knowing him a little bit, he totally screened us, though. We get into his office, TJ. You've been in this situation. And he's laughing and he's making fun of DeMarlo because DeMarlo said it was cool to start it because they were missing 6 people. So that was the chuckle. So no one even asked or tried to find out what his message was. And I was pissed myself when I walked out and I did a separate interview with him and I forgot, and it didn't even hit me until I got in my Uber. I said, damn it. I missed the main thing because he did it to me again.
Well, so that's why you asked me what was wrong with me, and I told you I needed another coffee?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, Zach, you've said it before, that there's almost a genius in the way that he approaches, and he gives off this like buffoon sort of.
All shucks.
And I mean, to some degree, the bad things that happen to him, I don't think he goes out of his way to plan these things. Like, I think some silly things do happen to him, but he knows how to use that sort of stuff to make people comfortable, and at times maybe get people off the scent of something he doesn't want to talk about. But there's a reason why players love playing for him. He makes people comfortable. We talked to Will Brennan in the offseason. He talked about how you get up here and you're so nervous because here's Terry Francona, a guy you don't want to disappoint just as much as you wouldn't want to disappoint your dad or your grandfather. And so it would be easy to be in your own head and be like, I don't want to let this guy down. But he just has such a way of connecting. And for him to be at the age that he is and still connecting with these younger players that are coming up, and we can say whatever we want. I mean, there are managerial things that Tito does.
Yes.
That all of us can say, I don't think I would have done that in that situation. Sometimes we're right. Sometimes he's right. Okay. I think you can make that case with every manager in the game. And when you're focused on one team, you've got your magnifying glass out and you're only focused on the flaws that you see every single day. But the behind the scenes stuff, I mean, we know it and we see it on occasion, but I don't even think being around him every day, you can know just how good he is at managing personalities and people and that aspect of things.
So when Brad Mills was his bench coach, they would have these conversations with players to say, hey, we got to send you down, or we're trading you, or you didn't make the team out of spring training. And the players would always leave that room feeling so appreciated, heard, understood, that Brad Mills would walk out with the player and be like, wait, just to double check, like you just got sent down to AAA, right?
Right.
And Millsy was like, it was almost comical. Like, I would have to double check because they felt like Tito always had their back, had their best interests. And, you always hear him say stuff like, we can't always do what's convenient. We have to do what's right. Like those lines that are so, he leans on a lot, but there's truth in it. I mean, he's very smart.
I'm glad you said something because, like, I'm at that point now going into the season. It's like I've asked Tito about everything, and obviously games will, help. But then to the point now, you ask certain questions and answers. He's going to go to his crutches, as I call it, the crutches. But they usually.
What's your favorite one?
Uh,
We don't need to make out our lineup in
but
advance.
we don't need to make up our lineup. It's smart. Yeah, that one. He's done that to me.
Oh, I don't know if we have a crystal ball that we can just look at.
The crystal ball. Don't ask about who your closer is. Remember a couple of years ago when we tried to go back and forth? It depends on who's available. Who's got? And I'm just like, Boston taught him so much. I think he just knows how to play the media game so well. And what doesn't piss me off, but I got a pretty decent relationship with him. And there's times where I have to finagle. There's times I get where I'll kind of hint to him I got to say something, and he'll be like, "Oh, all right," and he'll either give me, and usually in those times I'll get the worst answer ever, and I'll be like, "I told you what I was like." He's kind of genius in what he does, but I think McKenzie told me, I want to say during Guards Fest, it made sense the way he said it. He was just like, Tito doesn't BS you. He's like, the only times he talks to you, it's genuine. And he goes, and he does it to everyone. He goes, if he asks you how you're doing, you tell him. He'll ask you where you ate last night. He'll ask you how your parents are doing. And, and otherwise, he cuts it at that. He never just comes up to just have, or like he does us, Zach, where he'll ask the most random thing about someone on CNN or a college basketball team or chicken that he had in Barberton in 1974. But he won't just BS you. And I watch him sit at the beginning of that dugout when the season starts, goes out there early as he can. And each guy, and this is a little bit Naylor has this. Naylor does this on a plane and different types, where Naylor knows every person that helps us on the plane. He's genuine, looks them in the eye, asks them how they're doing. Tito kind of does that before every game with every player on his team. They have to go by him. And there's times I know where he doesn't like certain players or he's not crazy about certain guys, but he'll look them right in the eye, ask how they're doing. He doesn't bullshit people, and I think that's what has worked for him best.
I'm glad you brought this up. I was having a conversation with someone on Twitter, as dangerous as that is. And it came up just that it's a weird thing to say to a player, hey, you're on the team if we can't find somebody better on the waiver wire that we like or whatever.
Right.
And I think because Tito has been in the position, and he often sells himself short as a ball player, he was very good, but he also was in a position at times in his career where he was on the bubble. And I think him having gone through those experiences as a player prepares him to deliver that message or just to explain things. And for a player, can you imagine being told you made the team and the team doesn't tell you that, okay, maybe there's a stipulation here? Wouldn't you rather in that position just the team sit you down and say, transparent as we can be, you're on the team if, and here's the scenarios, here's how it could work out. And maybe I leave that room going, damn, I just want to be on the team. I don't want to have to be waiting in limbo.
Right.
But I freaking know now. The team told me what the plan is.
Right.
And I might not like the decision, but I'll respect it. I'll respect what they are telling me because at least they're being transparent about it. And I think Tito delivering that message helps.
Tito's favorite thing, when you ask him about DeMarlo Hale, his favorite thing to say is he doesn't lie. He'll look you right in the face and tell you exactly where you stand. So to go off of what you're saying, TJ, his guy that does all the, and Millsy will always be his best friend, will always have, but I don't think people in Cleveland realize how important DeMarlo is. I've whispered to Zach a few times, I don't think everybody gets how important DeMarlo is. Like DeMarlo is his guy, like just like Millsy was. But he allows DeMarlo runs the ship. And Tito, but he lets him do it because of what you just said. They don't lie to guys. Like I watched a player last year. Um, I'll give you guys a name when we get done recording, but the player did his job. Um, Kind of was like looking back at Sandy's high fiving, but he didn't make it to second base. He ended up making it to second base. He scored. Everybody's high fiving and everything else. And under his breath said just perfectly, "Your ass better be on second base next time, or I'm gonna take your ass out." And said player kind of was startled, kept high fiving everybody. DeMarlo apologized to Tito for saying and doing that the way he did it. And Tito looked at him and he said, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "I want you to do that every single freaking time." Never got out. We couldn't even catch it on TV. It was caught. It's little things like that. They don't have to embarrass the player. They don't have to, but they honestly tell it. And said player, his ass was on second base every time the ball was thrown to third base on a single the rest of the year.
So I remember that though. I think I can guess the player.
I think you can too.
So when Tito was interviewing for the job, and we don't have to turn this into a Tito podcast. By the way, have we told people this is the Selby's Godcast and you're TJ and I'm Zach? Like,
Oh, they don't freaking care.
all right.
Just here for Dre.
Stop it. This is my last. This is the last of my tour.
I love that Andre's done an entire tour, but God forbid we get a new A to Z.
It's how you campaign for money nowadays, I guess. Our lives have just twisted and turned. All right, let me ask you guys something. You guys have had this podcast for a while. I enjoy it. You guys obviously sit around as two friends. It's not two nerds. It's two guys that actually. I think that's one of the best things about my favorite podcast is you kind of know the characters and you know who feels certain ways about things.
It's one nerd.
Okay.
One and a half.
Yeah, there you go. As your lives are changing. You're a dad now, Zach. Tej is a dad, and he's chasing his kids as they get older. I think for Zach and I'll admit, and I really haven't said this anywhere else. He got remarried, and he's remarried to a family that's got a couple kids, and he's helping out with, and they've got sports. My kids are getting older, and I will be honest, in the off season, sometimes I feel guilty because of how much I'm gone during the regular season, and my kids are getting old enough where they're playing sports. The beauty of A to Z was that, and still is, but the beauty of the beginning was like how off the rails we were and how we could do one at 8 a.m. or we could do one at 10 p.m. in a studio with a six-pack of beer and then do three all in one night. So now our timings, it used to be like anytime I said I was good, we would record. Now it's like I got to be around his schedule as much as he's got to be around mine. So it's a little bit more difficult. I'm sure you guys have gone through that a little bit, have you not?
Well, I think, first of all, the thing that makes your podcast something everybody wants to listen to is that there's camaraderie, there's history, you guys know each other and trust each other. So when you go do a radio segment with some names I almost said but wasn't going to, not that there's a guard up, but you're not going to be as open and forthcoming as you can be with Zach when you're drinking a shandy and it's 11 at night.
Yes.
And I mean, I feel the same way. I've got, you know me, I've got radio hits lined up all week and
radio killer.
And there's not, they're going to ask certain questions that I don't want to answer. They're going to ask certain things that, I feel like I can't be as transparent about. Just because of the medium, because I don't know where the host is going with this, how they'll follow up. So, I mean, I know everybody has a podcast these days, and that's great. There's probably too many, but it's fine.
Probably,
but it's nice to have a spot that I know I can always turn to when I need to get something off my chest. When there's something I want to say that I couldn't say in some other medium. It's just nice to have that.
It's nice for fans to have it if they appreciate it. And I'll say this about podcasts. There are too many. Everybody does deserve to have a voice. but there should be. I'm gonna take a Deion Sanders thing about the Hall of Fame. There's got to be levels to it. Like I'm fine with certain people having podcasts, but don't bunch them together with people that are actually like. Don't put like I don't work on cars. Like, but like I can watch a YouTube clip and change a tire. I shouldn't be in the same section as the dude that changes tires for Jimmy Johnson. I mean, I went a roundabout way with this, but you guys get what I'm saying.
You know what? I don't even think it's that there are, because I think someone would hear what we're saying about too many podcasts and they would take that as somebody sitting in a basement somewhere who would be doing that and hosting a show. That they shouldn't have a podcast. No, I think when there's too many podcasts, it comes from like the big sports entities that they just throw two random people together because, hey, podcasts are popular now. We need to get right in there with everybody else. And I do this. I would much rather listen to a fan cast where people have camaraderie and it's entertaining.
No doubt.
It's not just about the information that you get, but I want to be entertained. I want to laugh. I want to learn something. And even if it's as simple as learning the pulse of the fan base and how they feel about a certain topic, I would much rather listen to that. YouTube channels. I subscribe to a ton of fan YouTube channels, not just covering Cleveland stuff, but MLB and all over the place.
Yes.
I find that to be very pleasant to listen to. But the one thing I don't want to listen to is some radio station that just throws two people together and says, hey, you two go host a podcast after your show is over. And it's 20 minutes of two people just sitting in a room going, yeah, so here's the latest news. Great.
Right.
That's just an extension of the show. Podcast is an entirely different thing.
Yes. And TJ, you know this. The ones that you're talking about, it's usually because they finally snag some company to pay them a couple grand. And they're like, hey, we'll give you a podcast with these guys. We can't give you a show. And it sounds exactly like that. You know, like the thing about baseball and why I love this podcast and it has to stay on. All the changes in baseball right now it's so pushed to like, oh, the young kids. You guys are still a part of the younger generation. I just did the Cespedes barbecue guys. I love those guys. Yeah, there is a young audience that loves baseball still. And we are allowing because of however the game is going for people to say, well, the game is, the kids darn into the game. Like, that's not true. Like Matt Underwood's son and Jim Rosenhouse's sons, they're both early 20s. I get more texts from Matt's son with like quick things from games all over, or like funny things that he sees than I do from any adult. And he is an adult now. I shouldn't call him a kid. I think we do need more podcasts that talk like this because we have so many people shunning us saying that we don't love the game of baseball anymore. And I don't agree with that. Even those kids that showed up last year, Zach, with like the Jordans on and all the chains and they asked the crazy questions. That's awesome. You see you see who the players truly are when those guys are asking them questions.
Speaking of which, tangent. Remember, so Michael Lachik cut his hair during spring training, and Rosie and I were talking to him and just asking him, like, so where'd you go? Like, were you nervous? How long did it take? It's at this place called Reactions with an X and a Z, and Rosie ended up going there to get his hair cut.
Shut up, really?
And he said the guy went way shorter than he wanted. And Rosie's sitting there, and the guy's still buzzing. He's sitting, and Rosie's the nicest guy.
Nicest guy in America.
And he's just sitting there, and like he's taking a little more off. And Rosie's like, "Oh my god, I told him like just."
And Rosie won't say stop.
Yeah. And Rosie's son has long like Mike Clevenger hair, and Rosie tried to convince his son to go, come with him. He said no.
Nate
you will not
better.
find a father and son who look less alike.
No, in America, no, it's true. It is true. So I love podcasts. I hope Zach and I get to do this more often. And we will. We'll find a way. I feel like that Browns beat, man, it beats you down. I call him Chubby Grossy because I know it pisses him off and it makes me chuckle. But there is something that happens to covering. I mean, I love Hoinsey, and this is where like Hoinsey is I grew up on Hoinsey. I read Hoinsey like you guys did. I consider Hoinsey one of my favorite parts of the summer for all the Hoinseyisms that happen.
The summer, the guy didn't have his license expired. He couldn't get a rental car all spring.
But dude, he is so pure as a person. Like that to me, growing in this business, and like the pure people are who I love. And for whatever reason, he has not let the first 30 probably years he covered the team. They were terrible. First 20 years they were garbage. Um, I think other teams and other people that have covered them, they've kind of become like the teams a little bit. I don't want
That's
that to happen in my
actually
life.
that's a really fascinating point. I mean we've talked about this. I've spent some time in Berea over the years, but you won't see me there on a daily basis because it just turns you into someone you don't want to be.
It does. I've
Yeah.
told, and Zach and I are close enough where I'm like, Zach, you need a week off, dog. Yeah, like, because I've been in the bubble. You guys, TJ, we all know when you've been in that bubble, there's something. And I don't want to put it like that, but there's something about covering that place that ain't. You turn and good here. Mike Snyder, the nicest man in the world, said it best after Phil Savage left. He was like, Andre, I don't care how religious you are, how good a person you are. After you spend 20 minutes there, something seeps into you.
It does. It's just a fog. It's just a funk. I don't know. You just walk right through it through the front doors and you can just feel it.
Yes.
I think the thing that I like about baseball, and you can't, you could, but you don't do it on the radio or in a lot of mediums, is just think about all the different things we can talk about. We had no prep for this show, right? Which we normally do minimum because we like to just wing it and it's more genuine that way. And with
Yes.
you, I mean, you're the king of winging it, and
I'm the no prep king.
But think about it. I mean, we started with Naylor, we got to Tito, we got to Rosie's haircut, and we can cover all those things, and we can tell stories and dig. I mean, we've gone deep on these topics, and there are a million things we could talk about. We could talk about our season predictions. We could talk about whether Kwan's going to repeat. We could talk about contract extensions, all this stuff, and it's all great. And people want to listen to different topics, but there's something about the Browns that.
Don't do
It's
it.
always the quarterback.
Don't
It's
do
always
it.
the coach. It's always the owner, and it's the stadium and the roof.
Yes.
And that's
yes,
it. And
yes.
no matter how often there's Browns talk on, and I hate that I keep coming back to this topic,
Preach.
but there's Browns talk on every single freaking day, every hour of the day. But do you ever hear them breaking down whether this linebacker was in the right spot or
No, it's
why
the same
Joe
talk.
Woods' defense failed or things like that? If you're going to talk about things, if you're going to talk about football constantly, can we get some variety? That's all I ask.
Yes, and every fan, and you just nerded out right there. So there are two nerds there, and that's okay because you're right. It's the same conversations over and over and over, and it makes you you lose your intelligence having the same. Literally, the Deshaun Watson talk from this time last year until he played, which was 10 months. It was all the same conversation. Just they moved the goalpost from here to here, and it's we don't have to do it because your point is made. And I love football, and you're you guys both know, but I hate what our medium is, and so we all have to continue. I did prepare for something on this because I don't know TJ if he's told you my thoughts on his top 30 and 30. I'm so pissed at, and I'm
You're going
just
to
gonna
come on
start.
my show and criticize my countdown?
Dog, I told this is my moment. This
Bring
is
it
me
on,
and
let's
TJ.
go.
This is
I
Selby's
want
Godcast.
to hear it.
Yeah, this is like an Outcast album. We got two albums, and I'm just gonna do the one whole 30 now. I love what you've put together. I'm so mad at the radio station I get paid for by all the others that beg you to come on the radio when they ain't got nothing to talk about and they don't know how to even talk baseball, so they make Zach answer 3 questions and then snicker about something about jerseys. This is what they should have been doing since you started this. And now that we are at the top 4, there are 3 left. And if your broke ass don't have the athletic yet, that's your problem. You should do it. I bought it for my dad for Christmas. I get it for other people. If you're nice, I might buy somebody if they really listen to this conversation and break it down. But give the background of what you've done, please, Zach, because I got some questions, man. I got some questions about your top 10. I ain't even gonna you could. I'll put it this way. I didn't even really go at you about everything. I can do all the names. Jose Mesa 30th, fine. Shin-Soo Choo, I kind of was you could this. I was this might not be good. But he was only 27th. Bieber being 24th is a conversation, but really I want to start at the top 10. So go ahead and explain to the people this mess that you have that has me texting you crazy every week.
This is the best because I have done no promotion of this. I finally tweeted out, I think a week ago, this series, and like it's honestly I had the idea during the pandemic. I started it, I think during the lockout, and then the baseball season came back, and I was like, there's a million things to write about, and the season's happening so quick. I'm just gonna stop, and if people want me to continue it, they'll tell me, and they did. So I restarted it, but like I did a lot of the work during the lockout, and the rankings, I said from the get-go, look, you're not going to agree with everything. You're going to be pissed that Albert Bell's here, that Ryan Garco's not on it, that this player's here. And I've tried to stay out of the comments. Like, no one has really tweeted me about it. Like, it's pretty much been out of sight, out of mind, except for like every Friday night at 12:30 in the morning, Andre texts me, and he'll be like, "Why did you have this guy here?" And I'm like, who even ran today? I didn't even read the website.
Usually after the kids are asleep, I've had a couple drinks, wife doesn't want to talk to me anymore. I'm messing with Zach.
So we're down.
Can I say one thing too, by the way, Dre? Because I don't know if he's bugged you about it, but this dude will just fire off text messages to me. Here's 10 names, rank them for me. Why am I doing the job for you? Like, I just step away. No, I'm not being a part of this because I don't want someday to be like, ooh, it wasn't my list. Zuppe came up with this crap. No, you do it. I'm not doing it.
Tej, you're telling why I love it. Because he's putting the list together and I get to break it down. I'm like, nah.
Which, by the way, then you bring it up to Rick Manning, who was not having it. But
no.
But the
that's what I do for a living. Don't worry, I did that on purpose. I get him going purposely.
I think the thing I appreciate is, and we talked about this offline, it's such good sports radio talk filler. And every radio station in town in July says, what is it, summer hack or whatever?
Yeah.
There's nothing to talk about. This is the perfect topic. If you're at the bar, this is the perfect time. It's such easy debate. Like, we all love to do it. Like, who is better, player X or player Y? And so, it's been fun. There is no scientific formula here. You can throw out WAR and FIP and everything you want, but that doesn't. There's no way to fairly evaluate everybody against each other. And
there's no perfect.
I'm sure my top three will differ from everybody's.
Well, I tell you what, people, if you haven't seen it, his top three are not going to have Jose Ramirez, Albert Bell, or Manny Ramirez. So right there, I don't like it.
I need a drink so I can spit take that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, dude, he's done a kick-ass job with this. I absolutely love it. And I've told him this already. I don't have to say this. I think this is something that should be done periodically. Ranking things is a pretty cool thing to do if you do it right. And for me, Zach, it doesn't matter what I think either because I've got my own emotions to it, right? We all have an emotional
key. That's the key because we're not, this isn't voting for the MVP and I'm looking and I'm saying this guy had a higher OPS and this. It's when you're arguing it at the bar, you're arguing because you have certain memories in your head. Yes. And I remember Jim Thome hitting that home run out of the stadium. That guy was unbelievable. He was better than player X to me.
For sure.
But the main thing, we can argue about this as much as we want. My rankings suck. I'm not going to deny that. But the main part was I wanted a reason to write an essay about everyone and to reminisce. There's been so much talent that's come through, and I had all this material. One of the main ones, I remember I had all these interviews about Cody Allen, and I had nothing. I had nowhere to put it. He had retired. I wrote something, and then a couple weeks later, I was talking to a few scouts who scouted him because he transferred during his college career. He didn't sign with the Indians at first, and these scouts had amazing stories about him. And I'm like, well, the guy retired. It's been a year. What am I going to write about? The timing doesn't make sense. Why am I writing an ode to Cody Allen 3 years after he was good in Cleveland?
Right.
It was perfect for this. And it just gave me a reason to reminisce. And so I hope people have – you can bitch about Bartolo Colon being 19 or whatever, but I hope people at least can appreciate the chance to reminisce and rekindle those good memories that they have.
Well,
Teach.
well, Dre, you
Yeah.
know better than anybody. Also, there's something to be gained here by putting together a terrible list, because then it gets
No
people like
doubt.
you
Yeah.
so mad and clicking every article. This dude ranked who, where, and next thing you know, Meisel's got all these comments. He's just, I don't know. I didn't even check the site today.
Oh yeah,
Like,
he's so
just
like, I didn't know.
lights the match, walks away, and then there's everyone else, and he just reaps the rewards of everybody being upset with his rankings.
It's the problem with media and writers letting me have their phone number. Like honestly, because it's like I won't go on Twitter and say I used to like with Camino I can still mess with, and even sometimes Zach Jackson, where I can tweet and we can kind of needle each other. But now every time Dick and Harry wants to jump in and give their own personal 2 cents, that it takes away that, you guys know, like that vibe of just being able to poke each other. So now it's like the midnight text of I don't know about that. But see, even looking at it, because if I had to do the same thing, I couldn't get this right either. But you putting Victor Martinez 17th and Sandy Alomar Jr. 16th makes me feel that you were comparing catchers, and before you knew it, they ended up slapped together because you didn't want to put them too far apart from each other. It's just a guess from me looking at this and studying it, right? And then Carlos Santana was a little lower because he played a couple more bases.
I mean, I think Cologne, Nagy, Cliff Lee, and Carrasco are all in order. I could not differentiate between those four pitchers for the life of me, because they all have, like, Nagy had the worst stuff of the four. He had a few years where he got beat around, but damn, was he good early on. And then he pitched when everyone was juiced, and he's still throwing 87. What's he supposed to do?
Well,
so it's not scientific.
No. But Tej, my thing has been this, and this is my glitch. We all have our glitches with how we would do this. My glitch is I want to rank guys from the 90s before the team really ever won. I want them ranked a little higher because I feel like they bulldozed. They opened up these trends, right? Like, so for like we'll use Nagy for example. Yeah, his numbers are bad at times, but if you go through what he did when they moved into Jacobs Field and with 15 wins every single year, he kind of made it okay for the hitting Indians to have a pitcher. He was that number one. And I don't got to sell it to you guys. You know, like we all have our reasoning behind it. Bartolo would be pretty. Like Cookie is a hard one for me. Cliff Lee is 21 is a good number, but for me, it's what you want to remember about Cliff Lee, right? Do you want to remember him throwing his glove in Toronto? I think it was, threw his glove up into the stands, or when that year after the playoffs, he was damn near unhittable his last season. It's hard. It is hard. I will give you that, but. In my eyes, Albert Bell, Jose, I would have to be in the top two.
So longevity plays a role in this too. That's what made it so tough for me, because Roberto Alomar is the best second baseman I've ever seen, but he was here 3 years. So should he be ahead of Jim Thome, who was your prototypical power hitting first baseman, but was really good at it for 11 years or so, 12 years?
I wouldn't say over Thome, but I would say to his 2 years, 2 of his 3 years were 2 of the best seasons of baseball I had ever seen.
Yeah. So well-rounded.
You know what I mean? Like he played for 2 seasons. Roberto Alomar was a wizard like we had never seen before. And it's unfortunate we didn't get to see him and Omar together longer in their primes. I think, and like I was a kid, we were all kids. It was a blur. I would pay good money as an adult to watch those two really play. And so I guess like with Roberto, yeah, he doesn't have longevity as an Indian, but he would go a little bit higher because his 2 years were probably better. Like Albert Bell's 50-50 season. How do we, like, what do you acquaint to that? Like, and I don't hate Jim Thome. I love Jim Thome, but he came after Albert Bell. He was able to start just like Manny. He was able to start at the bottom of the lineup, move his way up. The longevity part absolutely puts him in the top 4, top 3. But Albert did things we had never seen before in Cleveland
or anywhere. I mean, it was like if he gets the MVP that he rightfully deserved over Mo Vaughn, what does that change? I mean, honestly, like if he didn't have hip issues and played like 3 more years, he's probably a Hall of Famer.
Right. And Rick Manning, when you brought that up to Rick Manning, he said Kirby, and I went and looked. He's like, look at Kirby Puckett's numbers compared to Alberts, he goes, but Kirby Puckett made people happy and made people smile and did win a World Series. Like, I don't want to, and that's the thing about this. I don't want to degrade Kirby Puckett or anyone else. But the Albert one is hard. The Albert, I guess Jose's hard for me because, well, shit, we live it. like we see it.
He'll be number one before long.
Right. And Lindor was number 7. And this isn't a criticism, but so you go Grady Sizemore at 10, Omar Vizquel at 9, CC at 8th, Frankie, I call him Frankie, I'm going to call him Frankie now, at 7, Albert at 6, Corey Kluber at 5. I mean, there's no wrong in this, but I'm struggling with Corey Kluber, and I don't know where to put him. I don't know.
The first time I did this, I had him either first or second, and this is what I mean by like the thing that made this so difficult is longevity. I think it's a completely different conversation and probably easier to answer what if we ranked just by the player's ability at their peak.
Wow.
Albert Bell's 1, Corey Kluber's probably 2.
No doubt.
And
CC's hard for me too. I think he's top 5. If TJ, you and myself, we sat down at a bar, TJ ordered drinks, and you said that we were going to do this. In my mind, CC Sabathia would be top 5 already. And I'm not saying you're wrong, because as I look at it, I kind of am like, But on initial thought, I have CC really high up.
I think what sucks too is like so many of these careers, I want to see what CC's full resume looks like if he spends most of it in Cleveland. I want to see what Albert Bell's full resume looks like if he doesn't go to Chicago. Manny if he doesn't go to Boston. And this isn't, I'm not playing the ownership thing here, but it's in a lot of instances like Tommy's first maybe on this list or second on this list because he just played here longer. It's not. That's certain players.
That's a conundrum, though.
But how you can't knock a guy for that too. It's like, how do you take something away? We talk about this with Hall of Fame voting. Well, the guy was a compiler. Well, that also meant someone wanted to pay him when he was 42 years old to do something.
No doubt.
How do you take away from that? You got to balance it. The nice thing is, Zach and I have talked about this a lot, that with the way stats have exploded in the game, it's great for evaluation. I don't want to sit there and try to think about what a free agent contract should look like for somebody, what an extension for Andres Gimenez should look like with no statistics, nothing to back it up. I don't want to be doing that. But as you said, Dre, if you and I are sitting down at the bar, I kind of want to put away Fangraphs. We could open it up. I could just go, we could have a conversation. Who was better between these two? And if I just pull it up, I sort the thing by WAR, and I go, oh, well, it's Robbie Alomar. And then the conversation's over. We didn't have any fun debating this.
Right. No.
So this is where advanced stats have absolutely been a positive, a net positive for the sport. But there are things about it where it's fun to just have more of a subjective conversation about player rankings, how you'd put this together. And the other thing that just blows me away, how many star players that Cleveland has had over this stretch. And in the times where I mentally did this, where I didn't tell Zach what my list would have been, but I at least did the mental gymnastics to try to put it together, there were so many times where I would go, oh, clearly, Kluber. Clearly, he's got to be up here. And then you look at who else is still there, and you go, how in the hell do I put him above Tommy, who's Tommy's got a statue? How do I put him above that? So that's where it's fun, but it's also maddening because there's never going to be a right answer here. There's no end to the debate.
But the debate, what TJ has done, I think I know the top. I got a feeling I know who's number 1. And here I think one of the fights I had with not fights, but one of the things I threw out at Zach the one night, I was just like, well, this guy, I was like, well, Jose's got to be number 1. He's the only one that out of all these guys that's actually going to go to the Hall of Fame. And then then I thought about it, and I'm thinking about it now. Kenny Lofton should have got a better run at the Hall of Fame, and is going to get a better run at the Hall of Fame, and may beat a guy like Jose in because of how things work now. It's just interesting to and this is why baseball is great, right? we're doing this the night before the season starts. Whenever this runs, there, no matter how much we don't like the time clock, no matter how much we don't like what Bally's is or is not doing, no matter how we feel, we all can be excited for a baseball game for 100 different reasons, right? Whether it's the pitching matchup, whether I just want to see Julio Rodriguez, whether I want to see, like I think that dynamic, and I love all sports, and I'm not here just baseball's the best, but to me that dynamic of baseball is really cool. That I can want to come to the game, and I want to see. Uh, I was just doing Andres Gimenez throw 101 after he throws 15 sliders in a row, even though he throws 101, and then I can sit there and say, why the hell would he throw the fastball? There's just so many different segments of baseball. So in doing a list like this, it's so difficult because how do we put Jose Mesa, his career versus CC Sabathia versus Omar Vizquel? They all did completely different things, but they did them really well.
That's such a great point. I mean, in my final three, I can tell you who they, in some order, it's Lofton, Tomey, Manny.
Manny, yeah.
Those could not be three more different people, players, personalities. And you remember Manny as the goofy idiot who had the sweetest right-handed swing you've ever seen. You remember Tomey as the country boy who would hit balls a mile. And you remember Lofton for being the best defensive center fielder you've ever seen, base runner you've ever seen, and a great hitter. And those skill sets are so different. It's amazing the fact that those three were in the same lineup for 6 or 7 years. And you're right. That's what makes this list difficult. That's what makes it great, fun to debate, and it's what makes the sport great. You're right. It takes so many different skill sets.
We could do this for another hour, really. But there were two things that I wanted to ask you, Dre, before you left.
Okay.
One is something that Zach and I have talked about for like a year. Zach, maybe like a year ago, said, I've had this conversation with Dre like 100 times, and we're on the topic of lists, so it makes sense, where...
You're going to bring this up 52 minutes in?
Yes.
Andre and I could debate this for years.
I'm going to come back. That's all
How can
right.
you let him escape without talking about this thing that you've brought up on the show 100 times? The Oscar Gonzalez really brought this to light.
Oh, yeah.
You like to ask, Dre, what do we miss? What do we miss in evaluation of prospects where Oscar Gonzalez can come up and have a big season, a big postseason? Nolan Jones has a stretch where he's okay and then fades away and gets traded, doesn't even make the Rockies roster. That's not to say that's not the end of his big league career. But Nolan Jones was always kind of viewed as a solid, can't miss that he's going to be a star, but just can't miss that he's going to be a major leaguer. And yet here's Oscar Gonzalez, this volatile prospect who's earned the right field job, and he's going to get an opportunity to prove that he is the guy that he was this past year. What are scouts? What are the numbers? What are we missing on this where Jones can be up here and Oscar Gonzalez can get left off a 40-man roster?
The depth of this question is so deep. And so I want to say the right thing because I never want this conversation to stop. And it kind of starts off of what we started with about scouting. The easy way I'll say it right now, Teach, is, and we kind of hear, we all know. I think we have to start watching guys not knowing what Keith Law says, and Keith Law is pretty good. I think with anything else, information is everything, and for whatever reason, and we'll use the players that we're using right now because they're the easy one for all of us and the people that are watching, listening to your podcast. I think with Nolan Jones, because you know his name right away, and he's drafted, and he's tangible to see who he is, right? His size. There's easy to find clips online. You can read about him, and you understand like all of us kind of like in our heads, like, because we're from Northeast Ohio. So for me growing up, if a kid was from Northeast Ohio and played football, he was tough. Even though he might not be, in my mind, Northeast Ohio, tough kid. With Nolan Jones, we can go where he's from, where he grew up, brother plays hockey. Easy. That's easy. That's attainable information. That's easy to make sense in your mind. Where Oscar Gonzalez, there isn't really a lot. There's a couple paragraphs. Maybe you see a grainy picture. And then you read the negative things like we all do. Swings too much, does this too much. I think the naked eye still wins, right? And I said this to Zach, and Nolan Jones is a really good dude. He's a good kid. I hope it works out for him. I hope he starts making more contact because it's crazy. He didn't make a team this spring because he could not make contact this spring. He struck out a million times. Where now that Oscar has this small little track record, I know towards the end of spring training, people were kind of like, he hasn't really hit. And then he has a couple games where he hits, and everybody's like, all right, he'll be okay. I guess what I want to say quickly, and Zach knows how I feel about this, is that sometimes we can read the reports, but we can't make the reports our holy grail without seeing them with our own eyes. If that makes sense. Like, it's easy to be like, oh, yeah, he swings too long, or this is that. Well, let's watch 12 at bats and throw out all the crap we see and say what you see, and then let's mold it together.
The thing that the good organizations do, I know Cleveland does this, and I know I can name a few that probably don't, is they try to find ways to remove those inherent automatic biases, right? And because you have emotions, you laid that out really well. I think when you see, and this is why I always caution people when you see a trade made and it's, they got this team's number 3 prospect and number 8 prospect. Yeah, according to MLB Pipeline, but is that according to the teams involved in the trade? Because their internal evaluations of those players might be totally different than what you see publicly. And if I would have told you in June of last year or 3 years ago that Nolan Jones would be traded for a 20-year-old low A prospect who might be good, I don't know.
He's big. Burrito's bigger than I thought he would be, by the way. He's pretty smooth. Continue.
But that they'd use Nolan Jones to just kick the can down the road for a younger prospect?
Never.
And that Oscar Gonzalez would be playing right field in the playoffs? You never would have believed it. Would the front office have believed it? Maybe. I don't know. But I think there's a lot to this discussion, but I think a big part of it is we assume teams evaluate players the same way. Yeah. And we know that's not the case. Every time you see a trade and you're like, wait, I thought the Guardians were involved in that. That's all they would have had to give up. Not necessarily. That's not how each team evaluates these prospects.
Think about the trade that didn't happen after Andrew Miller. I can't remember all the names. I mean, Craig Allen, Yu Chang, LaCroix, yeah. And like some people around Cleveland were like, well, they got the reliever, but they screwed up by not getting the catcher. Now we all know down the road that Roberto Perez is up hitting 2. He has the month of his life. God bless him. And you never felt like you missed LaCroix. But think of those 4 guys they were going to trade and who they all became. And and I'll admit at that time I was kind of caught up in like all the reports.
It felt like a lot at that time to give up.
Hell
right?
yeah,
and then those guys
right.
didn't pan out.
And on that note, I find it, and I want to say this the right way because I know it'll get us going. You think back to that trade and what they were willing to give up for Jonathan LaCroix, or as my man Matt Underwood called him, Ranger Catcher. I love the pettiness. Look, man, Matt is my guy, and he takes a lot of crap. But man, he pinpoints and says little things that make he's my guy. He does things like that we all have to hit the cough button and laugh. Ranger Catcher was one of my favorite all time. Because I remember I was like, I'm going to call him his name if I have to. But as we got into games, nobody wanted to say his name. The one I want to say to you, and Tej, I'll ask you first because I'm curious. I'll let Zach have the time on this. Knowing what we know about this organization and knowing we have no idea what the next 5 months truly will play out. We all think we do. But I know Zach kind of feels this way, and I'm getting to this point now. They're going to have to make a move, not because they want to. They're going to have to. And when I look back at like that, and I know times are different from 16. You know where I'm going. How do they package? Who do they package? I am so intrigued by what they do.
I mean, we've been saying it for 3 years now, I feel like.
Right.
You have this, what's becoming a bottleneck of middle infield prospects who all want to play, and you've got your second baseman now locked up who could go play shortstop for you and probably do a pretty damn good job at that. We still don't know. Ahmed maybe he
I know,
to an extension. And so that's not going to make the middle infield any easier to figure out. So, yeah, you would think. Now, the thing that does work in their favor, they are set up this year. They should have no hesitation. If you go back to the last trade deadline, they weren't ready to pull the trigger on the big move. They weren't
No.
really in the mix for like a Soto when that's going down. Now, we can look back and with hindsight and say maybe they should have been. But at the time, we weren't. None of us believed that the Guardians were in that position. Going into this year, the way that it's set up, they should be in that position. And you get to the trade deadline, and you got a big number 1, number 2 starter available there.
Corbin Burns, say it.
Yeah. Brewers pitcher.
Hell yeah.
Got a Brewers pitcher out there. Now, you shouldn't hesitate because the team is in this position and they have all of these prospects. They're not only are not all of them going to pan out, but they all can't play either. You can't hold on to them all.
Right.
And at some point,
They know that.
At some point, Tyler Freeman and Gabriel Arias are wasting away being a utility player on a team like this.
Yeah.
I think.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say like an interesting article to write. We make so much. We talk so much about the trades they make, but a lot of times it's the trade you don't make
Amen.
that ends up putting you in the position you need to be in. Remember, like they were trying to trade for Todd Frazier like 7-8 years ago, and they were going to give up. Like the Reds asked for players that they should not have been thinking about giving up, and they made a good decision not trading for him. Like they've been linked to. I mean, TJ, you mentioned this last week, but like Jesse Winker.
Oh
Dodged
yeah,
a bullet there, right?
they were going last year at this time. That was like the big one.
Right.
That was big, and that was legit.
So that's not to say that.
Wait, let me say something real quick. I think, and if I'm wrong, I'll be told I'm wrong. I think that didn't go through because the Reds were trying to throw money in it. And they were trying to throw Eugenio Suarez into it.
Correct.
He comes here to Seattle and locks right into the middle of the line. But I'm agreeing with you. Think about that. They didn't want to do that trade, and it ended up working out perfect for them. The Reds, it worked out for Seattle, though, too. But the one guy's gone, and Suarez is going to be in the starting lineup on opening day still for the Mariners. It's
The
crazy how
domino
this stuff
effect.
works.
Domino effect on all these things is amazing because if the Guardians don't sign Jose last year and they trade him to San Diego, then San Diego probably doesn't get Juan Soto, and then maybe he winds up in L.A. I mean, there's
New York with the Mets,
crazy.
with everybody else.
Yeah. But it's the trades you don't make that. I mean, the Lucroy one. I don't know. Would he have put them over the top? I don't know.
I don't know. I think I've told you. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the prospects that we've kicked around. Remember going back to the Lindor trade. Every Dodgers prospect there was.
Gavin Lux. Yeah.
Gavin
Lux. Remember Nick Senzel. Nick Senzel has stunk.
Yeah.
He's been terrible.
TJ, Nick Senzel was playing in the 9th inning of our game on Sunday when the whole rest of the team had left for Cincinnati already. I was like, damn, what is he doing here still?
And 4 years ago, I would have been like, hell yeah, Nick Senzel. That's fantastic. And I guess this kind of comes back to where we were just talking about with missing on prospects.
Right.
I will say one thing for the reports and the numbers. I still feel like it's more of a you bet on the things that are projectable. For Nolan Jones, like take the names off of it. I tell you, this guy walks a lot. He's got power. I can tell you those two things. And then I've got this other player that has some tools, but just likes to swing at stuff outside the strike zone. And so you look at, okay, what did players that had those certain skill sets in the past do? And it doesn't mean that they are those players, but I am going to utilize that. It's kind of like going in and knowing the odds.
Yeah.
If I tell you that there's a 75% chance that something's going to happen, does it mean that the statistics were wrong when the other 25% comes up?
No, but the 25% becomes like, gosh, I knew we could do this all night. I would say that 25% is like March Madness, though, right? Who has a 64 team, or how many damn teams they put in there now? Like, at some point, that 25%. Of course he does. He just put it. What did he just put with his toes, like in paint, with the dog told him to take? It's about the only way you can win in this thing anymore. But I mean, in seriousness, like the bunting thing. I know you guys hate bunting. I can't commit.
That doesn't mean 100% of the time.
Thank you. And see, look at TJ's got the bunt. It doesn't. I don't want to see bunts. I agree. But dang it, sometimes when you're off, it's like life. Like you can sit there, if you haven't moved guys, and you know what it's like, Tej, when you go a week and you can't score runs, Every once in a while, throwing down a bunt and getting guys to second and third and taking the pressure off of a kid, it works and it makes an inning go. Now, does it work if you do it every single night? You're gonna get fired. But it's nice to have it in your back pocket every once in a while. And I think the Oscar one was because I agree the numbers do tell us something. But I also think if we get so caught up in those numbers and not caught up in how people mature and change, we know Oscar. Hey, look, Oscar may struggle early on, and it's not going to look good when he struggles because of how he swings. His thing will have to be just like he did in the playoffs, and what's helped him survive is just survival modes with two strikes to be able to just flip the ball the other way. He's going to have to live off that when he doesn't have his timing because it doesn't look good. And I think with Nolan, those things are important, but because defensively he never found a position where you can just throw him out there and say, hey, we saw it with our guy that's going to be DHing in Kansas City from Fran Mill. When you don't have a position and you're struggling, it becomes a problem, right? And Nolan not only couldn't out hit Oscar, he couldn't out defend Oscar, and that became one of his big issues as well.
And then, I mean, to take it full circle, it comes back to how do you handle adversity? How do
Yep.
you seek out ways to improve when pitchers find a way to pitch to you? Or like you said with Nolan Jones, I mean, it's where can you play defensively that they feel comfortable letting you take those lumps? And that goes back to learning the person and
Right.
the character and the makeup and the hunger and the work ethic. And on that note, Andre, I know, I mean, you got to know these guys down in the DR over the offseason. Oscar and Ahmed, Jose. When will the people get to see this stuff?
Oh, thank you very much. On a Friday on the opener, I believe the opener is on April 8th, I believe, or April 7th. Which one is it, 7th or 8th? Whatever day it is when we do the home opener, afterwards the documentary on Jose Ramirez will premiere on Bally's or whatever station. They say it's going to be Bally's, whatever station has the Guardians.
WUAB 43?
Oh, they play your favorites. We're going to do that. That's going to be, matter of fact, earlier today when I saw you, I was with my man Money Mitch. I had to record some things with that. We got a really cool thing from when we went to the Dominican and we were able to go to Jose's house. By the way, Jose has become a father for the second time, and we were around his wife when she was pregnant in January, and it was really cool. It was cool just to see Jose in his house, man, and just to see like the same Jose we see walk through the clubhouse. I got to tell you, it was pretty cool to see him in his house shoes doing it in his own house and come over and pop me in the back of the head. But I will say this on a quick note. I hope everybody gets to watch it, and I think they will. The really cool thing, though, and Zach, and I want people that watch this podcast to really get, is that the one thing I picked up on taking that trip to Dominican, and I've been wanting to do that for a long time, because I've told Jose way back when, I'm coming to Bonnie, and he looked at me and goes, nobody comes to Bonnie. The look on his face to see that I wasn't a liar. There ain't many times at 40, I'll be 45 next week. There ain't many times in this life now where I knock on somebody's door and I see somebody smitten to see me at the door. It was really cool to see Jose look at me and say, "You not lie, you not lie." To go to a Meds and we're gonna run something with the Med. Matter of fact, I want to say the week of our games in April 21st. I should have it in front of me. I got it written down somewhere. We're gonna do a whole Dominican week in the pregame where we're gonna show all the different things I did in the Dominican. One day we've got me hanging out with Ahmed and his family. One with Oscar and his family. One we show the international signing, which I would love to talk to you guys more about because it's becoming the backbone of not only the Guardians rosters and teams, but it's kind of how baseball is going right now. And it was one of the hangups last year when they were trying to put the deal together of how to deal with international signing and the draft because it's a whole different thing, as you guys know. But we got to film it. I got to be there on the international signing day. My wife was crying like a baby because she was like, "It's like these kids are going to college." I was like, "No, honey, they're getting $8 million. They're getting $2 million." And but it still is weird to watch 16-year-olds get dropped off, and kind of like the parents take the money. It's like, "Good luck, kid." It's interesting. I say the Med one is going to mean a lot to me because I got Ahmed to do something that he just doesn't feel comfortable doing. Ahmed comes from a family full of educators, lawyers, doctors. I did a whole 20-minute interview with him in English, and he didn't even and his agent came up to me, and his agent goes, "Dre, he said he wasn't going to do this, but you've made him that comfortable. But he asked now, can you chill and can we do it differently? And I was like, dude, I never thought he was going to say any. Like, I talk to Ahmed every day. I know Ahmed just isn't comfortable, doesn't want to be made fun of. So I've got something where you get to hear Ahmed just chill out. He's warming up on a baseball field in Dominican. The baseball field looks like something that we've never seen before. There was a team from the College of Tampa that was there for their spring break, which was really cool, helping like fix the field up. His family was just tremendous. I can't wait till you guys see. I think, put it this way, for those that don't want to watch Ahmed play shortstop, when you watch him and with his family and with his dogs, you're going to want him to be your shortstop for the next 20 years. It was so cool. I got Oscar walking around his neighborhood, walking to his grandma's house, walking to the baseball field, literally a home run away from his parents' living room. We're walking by, and there's like 8 kids sitting on a stoop at the baseball field. And Oscar literally goes, that kid's going to sign with the Yankees on Thursday for $1 million. That kid's going to sign with San Diego for 800,000. That kid, and it was just, and then Franmil Reyes comes around on a moped going, Andres! It felt like home. I would say, as being the two that you are and being the guys that you are, you got to make a trip and do that. It changes the game, how they see you and how you see them and how they live. And the videos you're going to see of where Jose Ramirez grew up playing on, I sent it to Terry Francona, my dad, my mom, and somebody else. And all 3 of them almost text back immediately and said they had tears in their eyes. When you see how little Jose came from, and how proud his grandfather and his parents, the people around Bonnie are of him, it tells you so much. I got a story in there. I know I've told it to you, Zach, but I'll give a little bit of it here about the guys he played baseball against growing up. Like, he was playing against grown men. Some on the seedier side. They were games that were basically put together by not good people, and it was played for money. And he saw some nasty things happen to people if they made errors. And I'll never forget Danny Salazar saying, Yankee Stadium will never impress him. This is what he played. He played against old men and that would cut your fingers off. Like, he was playing, but he wasn't completely playing. And when I brought that story up to Jose, his eyes got about this big, kind of going, how the hell did you know that? So we had that moment. Rafa, that does the Spanish for the games for the Cavs, he's helping us out, doing some of the speaking for Jose. So I hope people take the time out. It's something I've been working on. Zach, you guys, it's something I've been wanting to do a long time. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm proud that we're finally gonna be able to show it.
I think, and you know this. I mean, I my editor, like last week, said, I think it was when I filed Jose Ramirez on the countdown. He said, "Man, how many Jose Ramirez features do you write every year?"
Not
and I told
enough.
him, I'm like, I've written more than anybody.
You have,
but I've barely scratched the surface. And it's tough because you always hear people say the language barrier. You always say, I wish I knew Spanish, and it's not even that, because I took 7 years of Spanish. I've done the Duolingo in the off season. They speak fast. They have slang. It's different, and it's hard to keep up. And you're still not going to get to know them on a personal level.
No.
And the way to do it is what you did. And I think the story that probably, I think back of all the Jose features I've written a million. I went to he spoke to an elementary school that was all Spanish speaking students, and like that was so enlightening to me to see him in that environment.
Told the same story about kids go to school. I'm not, what I didn't work. It's not for you.
Exactly.
It was awesome.
I mean, I've played him in Mario Kart. I've watched. Remember last fall I was trying to write this story to show people who he is. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking, like, he's not a good quote. He doesn't like talking to the media on the record and all that. And then it dawned on me, like, just watch how he interacts. Stand back for 2 weeks and watch how he interacts with every person in that room.
Yes.
That's the best way you can tell
That's the best story. He's Tito. It's what you were saying about Tito. Yeah. You can't get him to talk about himself. I sit next to him during games. Like, I will die with the best Jose watching a starting pitcher and breaking it down to me like only Jose can. Happens. It's in Spanish. It's in every language, to be honest with you. But baseball, I can tell you. Like, he told me in the playoff game with Clanahan, right, for the Braves, hit the home run. He was right-handed, hit it oppo. He told Ahmed in the first inning, "You're gonna have to hit a changeup." He goes, "That asshole ain't good." That is. I'm not. I didn't want to say
whatever the fuck you want.
No, it's not about your podcast. It's about I don't want the player knowing. He called him a bitch. But it was basically this bitch won't throw.
No one's watching this deep into the show anymore.
Basically, this bitch ain't gonna throw us a fastball. Get ready to hit his off speed. Get ready. I tell that because his intellect, and how do you, like, he's not going to be able to break down to you that that's how smart he is. But by watching him and listening to him and watching and knowing that McClanahan was getting up to 96, 97, and he called it after like 8 pitches. This bitch ain't coming to us hard. Like, you got to get ready. And like the whole team changed the way they went against him. Now, he had success, but when the game was on the line, the guy that 10 minutes into the game was just like, he ain't coming at us with that. You better prepare for changeups and curveballs. That's Jose Ramirez.
And the nice thing, well, I was just going to say, the nice thing is he connects with so many different people that going back to 2016 when he and Napoli had a relationship,
yes,
people would say, those don't look like they would get together in the clubhouse. But he forms relationships with everybody. So when he notices this kind of stuff, he can pass that down to everybody. And who's not gonna take that advice from him? Who's not gonna take that and run with it?
Andres Gimenez has 107 million reasons why to thank Jose. Because he became, and Zach knows I'm gonna say this. He's become mini Jose in many ways. He's watched him. He's quiet. He's not like Jose personality wise, but as a player, he was smart enough to come over right away, and it got him in trouble his first year. Because he was kind of like, I'm bigger than him. I can do the things he's doing. But he's been smart enough to like pick up on why this guy's so good. And there were times I said this on the Cespedes pod.
During your nationwide tour.
Yes. Hey man, you guys, this is it. I'm back to A to Z after this, baby.
Good. It's draft season.
I know. That's why.
What are they doing with number 73?
Who gives a rat's? You know what? They better trade and get somebody that can catch. That's what they should do. And a left tackle, if you want the truth, because Jed ain't
we
doing
need 30 minutes on OBJ hugging Stefanski.
I thought of that when I saw that. I was like, oh, Hiram's gonna lose his shit. But to me, I know it's a hard one to angle up, but to me, the Jose's coming out party home run was against the Twins when he pissed Paul Molitor off, and last year Hemi's coming out party was when he pissed off Dick Brimmer and put him to sleep against Minnesota. I think that Jose's got so much of an impact on Andres that we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg.
And I think you alluded to it, and I'm sure we'll see more in your piece, but the public, and even us, we have no idea how these guys have to fight to survive in this game as they're growing up. I mean, Jose was out of school at 12.
Yeah.
And it's baseball or nothing. And it's not a great process.
It's not glamorous. There's not running water around where they're at, but they have a joy for life that we don't have that I truly respect.
And this is why things like the World Baseball Classic mean something.
Amen.
To these players.
Yes. And America, but Teej, and I know we're up against it. I could do a whole World Baseball Classic talk because I loved it. And I think as Americans, we better be careful. Like, the best player in the game is not from here. And I would go as far as to say maybe the top 3 players aren't from here. We better wake up. Like, people are loving our game, and they're playing it better than us now. Wake up.
I didn't get hooked until the end, and hooked is strong. But if we're going to accept having the XFL, why can't we accept having the WBC?
No shit. Good point. Thank you. Good point. Hey, the Browns' next right tackle may be in the XFL. That's why.
By the way, Sea Dragons -3.5 this weekend.
I love that they put it on the line on the ticker. Like, as Balance is trying to figure out where to put the timing clock on your, they just say, screw it. Here's what you can bet in this game.
All right, Jay. Well, you mentioned no one being as happy as Jose was to see you on his front doorstep. I don't know. I was equally as happy to see your face pop up, and we can, first of all, get past whatever it took for us just to get this show started, but also, second of all, get past the 5 years it took to get you back on the show. We've come a long way. Actually, maybe we haven't, but there were times where you should just pop in when we were recording at the ballpark. This is a little bit more fun when we can kind of sit down and do this.
Let's do it more often, please. Seriously.
Yes.
I'm big fans of you guys. I want to do it more often because my minute baseball talk on A to Z just doesn't cut it.
A minute there.
Maybe could we get all 4 of us in a room? I want to see Zach squirm
Hey, we actually went to the MAC tournament together in a car, and the CFO of A to Z, if you know him, he saw us in the where you can make bets at downtown now, and he screamed out, "A to Z's alive!" He wanted us to record in my car on the way home. I was like, "No thanks."
All right, Jay, we'll let you get out of here, but we do appreciate it, buddy. It was a lot of fun. And like you said, I can't wait to do it again because, truth be told, I had like 5 or 6 things, and I'm like, I got to ask Dre this. I didn't get to like 4 of them. So
Let's do them back. Let's do it again in April when you guys got nobody. Get me, and let's do it again.
You want a bottle of red or a bottle of white tonight at the steakhouse?
Whew, I don't know if we're going to the steakhouse still. I'll let you know shortly. I think there may have been a audible call. I'll keep you updated.
We'll let everyone
Red,
know.
though, if you see me.
We'll let everyone know in the
I
Discord.
can't afford it. My identity was stolen.
That's an all snap. Hey, you're starting to get like Hoinsey. See, now I'm gonna have to call you Chubby Hoinsey.
How many belts are you wearing, Zach? All right, we're out of here.
Peace. Be good, boys.